Do you think that we have, as an industry, created narratives that have worked against kind of that authentic storytelling and that ability to go out and say manufacturing is sexy, even if it's dark and dirty and dangerous?
Well, 100%. I mean, that's what marketing does. I think a lot of manufacturers talk about themselves too much, and I think they talk about the product too much. I think they get into the technical weeds too much. You do need to get into the technical weeds once you're down a certain point in the funnel. But if you're top of the funnel, meaning it's a brand awareness piece or something.
Hello and welcome back to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Mayer. If you're new to the show, welcome. We're so happy you're here. If you are a longstanding listener, thank you for coming back. But for those of you who are new, check out our other shows, Work But Make It Human, Industrial Storytellers, and our YouTube channels, the Manufacturing Culture Podcast, this show, and Manufacturing Connector, where we show the tools and technology that really are helping the humans of the manufacturing industry. This episode today is going to be a lot of fun. We've got Danny Gonzales here. Danny spent nearly 20 years inside factories with a camera and a strategy playbook. He's built 2 companies dedicated to helping brands grow through video and story. Through Optimum Productions and Industrial Stage, he has seen how manufacturers win, how they stall, and how the wrong story, can cost companies money. Danny sits in the intersection of media, trust, culture, growth, and the shop floor. So we're really happy and very lucky to have him here today. Danny Gonzales, welcome to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. How are you doing, man?
Hey, Jim, I'm doing fantastic. Thanks so much for having me on. Man, that bio made me sound like awesome.
Well, you are awesome, man. We first connected at the Industrial Marketing Summit. And for those of you who are listening in the marketing space, if you haven't been to IMS, get your butts to Austin this year.
100%.
It is one of the coolest conferences, summits that I have been to. Danny has attended. Was this your first year or second year?
Yeah, absolutely first year. And I got to say, I was blown away because I've gone to some other conferences and stuff there. But as it relates to manufacturers, it was, to be honest with you, super exciting to walk into a room. And I think there were 300 people there, maybe more.
Yeah.
And vast majority manufacturers, not necessarily vendors, actually manufacturers who are really invested in digital marketing and learning these new ways. Super refreshing because that has not been like that in the past. So I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah.
To go.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the first year it happened, I don't usually feel FOMO, and this event made me feel FOMO. So I had to go this last year. I was lucky enough to speak and get to speak again this year, but they marketed it as a place that marketers in the industrial space can be around their people. And I gotta say, that's the truth, because I have not felt like I was surrounded by 300 like-minded individuals in a long time, and that was the place. So yes, if you haven't been, definitely go. I'm not compensated if you go, so this is out of the goodness of my own heart and because I think it's a great place for you all to be. So make sure you're there in Austin in is it February or March?
Late February, something like that.
Something like that. So Danny, let's get into the questions. We're going to have a lot of fun in this conversation. The first question, I don't even know if I prepped you for. So
no, let's go. This is how we roll. Let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's my standard icebreaker, but it paints us a picture of who you are, Danny Gonzales, as a person. So if your life were a movie, what is the genre of the movie? What's the opening scene and who plays you?
Holy cow. That's a very deep question. Yeah. So I'm going to have to shoot from the hip on this one.
Exactly.
Probably recently, it's very topical. This is around, I'm not sure when this is going to be released, but this is right after Thanksgiving. So I love Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Perfect.
Watch that. I think that's a good one as you're navigating through life, trying to figure out, what things are. And there's a lot of comedy involved. Things don't go the way that you think that they are. And it's how you respond. 2 different responses, 2 different characters. You get Steve Martin and John Candy there. You got one who's the happy-go-lucky, whatever. You got the pragmatist who's very, I would say I'm both. Like if you could marry both of those together, that would be me.
Is it situational, whether you're pragmatic or footloose and fancy free?
It can be situational to the point that our logo of one of the companies is actually designed behind that, because I feel like I'm split brained. So I'm like half analytical and half creative. I got my degree in accounting and I'm working in a creative field, and that totally makes sense because everybody does that, right? But our Optimum logo is actually a perfect example of where that comes from, where it takes the left and the right side brain to make to create results, and the results is actually a 16:9 frame like video. If I could pull it up, I could show you. But I think that answers your question, right? The movie, what the character that I would play, and maybe the why,
An
or who
opening
would play
scene.
me.
Yeah. What's the opening scene?
Oh, the opening scene. Gosh, I got movie.
From the movie of your life. Yeah.
Oh, that's all right. I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to go, right? Opening scene. I like drama. I like things where you're kind of you're fading from black up to something. You've got a dolly push that's kind of pushing in very slowly. You've got some ground on the foreground. You have something in the back. What is it? We're not 100% sure. And we're pushing forward, but we're not exactly seeing what it is, and we're moving.
Okay.
Constant moving forward.
I like it.
That's what it
I
would
like
be.
it. All right. And so now you get the background on why, and the audience knows this, but the genre tells us how you see your life, right? So when I ask my guests how they see what genre, that's a good snapshot for how they see their life unfolding. We're all in media res. So that's the opening scene, is that because no story actually starts at the beginning of that story. All good stories start at media res, and we're all in media res currently. So that's the opening scene part. And then who would play you is your reflection, not of your life, but of who you are as a person. So it gives us a good snapshot of how Danny Gonzales sees himself. You're in a comedy movie. You're pragmatic. You're footloose and fancy free. Somehow have blurred those lines, and you're constantly moving forward in a dramatic fashion, and that's where you are in life right now. So I think that from what I know of you, that paints a pretty good picture of who you are.
That was a very deep question, and that was I feel like now this is going into some sort of like a therapy session, or we're doing some psychological analysis of tell me how you ended up like this.
Well, you haven't heard the rest of the questions yet, Danny. We're going to get there.
Man, I regret this
Yeah,
instantly. No, I'm just
yeah,
playing. This is
yeah.
great.
So next question, next icebreaker or opener is, when you think about culture, what's your definition? So there's the dictionary definition, and then everybody's got their own individualistic view of what culture is. So what's culture mean to Danny Gonzalez?
Well, I guess you'd say the definition would be, how you shape behavior inside any organization. I'd say culture really is a temperature gauge of who you are and where you're going. And when I think of that, I think of naturally, I think of core values. I mean, I'm getting very, corporate, right? But I'm also thinking of, uh, you know, mission. Does an organization, if they've got a culture, do they have a mission? Does everybody know where that is? And are you going, and are people on board or
Yeah,
not? I
yeah,
think ultimately that's how I think of it.
I love it. I love it, and I'm trying to. I've been asking that question now for, I think, close to 60 episodes, and I'm trying to figure out how I can use that individual answer in some way, shape, or form. I don't know if it's t-shirts, I don't know if it's a calendar, I don't know if it's a book, but somehow, some way, I've got to get, because out of the 60 some odd people who have answered that question, no two answers have been the same, and all the answers have been awesome. So I love your answer, Danny. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm sure you tell it to everybody.
Not everybody.
Oh, come on, you'd be like, hey, Danny, let me be honest with you. That I've interviewed 60 people. That one kind of sucked. I'm not gonna
I
lie. Like, no,
well,
I'm just
I
playing.
don't necessarily say it sucked, but those episodes may not have seen the light of day. Let's just put
Okay,
it that
all right.
way. Uh,
I'm just throwing shade. We're having fun here.
yeah, absolutely, man. So let's talk about Danny Gonzalez and your origin story. You mentioned in the intro or at the top of the show that you studied accounting. Now you run a video company, a production company. You drag cameras out into loud, messy, places. What pulled you into the industrial manufacturing world?
It's a great question. So in order to answer that question, I got to go back to some days in Mexico. After I graduated high school, I lived for 1 year in Mexico. I did some missionary work, and I picked up video, and out of all places there, I was doing some like youth development work, and the area that I was at, they had like an editing, they had Premiere 5.0, whatever. And we started making these little like virtue videos, like videos on virtues, for character building and whatnot. And I was like, wow, this is a really cool medium that I feel like I could actually communicate and express myself in a way that I could do before. And so went to college, and I went into accounting because I got, I'm weird, and I got a scholarship for that, and I wanted to go in the FBI. Actually, was one of the big things, and that's one of the 4 areas that you can go under as a special agent. Accounting, believe it or not, there's a paper trail, and it's a way of thinking. Anyways, I'm doing this and get more into video. Graduate college. I have all of these clients that I've kind of cultivated, and down the line, I was always fascinated with manufacturing and how things work. I think a lot of people in manufacturing, the industrial space, can identify with the show How It's Made, and just like love just seeing the behind the scenes and the tinkering. And I felt the exact same way. And I remember like the first time being able to go into a manufacturing facility. It was like this wonderful world to me, and I was like, this is amazing. I don't feel like I have an engineering bone in me. I really struggle like mechanically in putting things together. And to be able to see like what people have done, the processes that they have developed. I mean, there's a ton of creativity in it. People miss that. There's a ton of creativity in accounting too, but it's a different topic. And it was a wonderland. So we made an intentional shift in 2017 to kind of focus more on manufacturing. We found at that point with the video business that most of our peer companies wanted to work with technology and SaaS companies and Silicon Valley companies because they were cool and sexy. Manufacturing was this dirty, grimy, I don't want to touch this. And we were like, are you kidding me? This is awesome what's going on here. Yeah, you guys go do all that. We're going to go over here because there's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of amazing things happening here. And so that's kind of the quick and dirty how we kind of got into it, and the rest is history.
Was there a first plant that you walked into or facility that you walked into and you realized, man, people don't know what manufacturing really is because this is truly what it is, and they think of this?
I don't know that I can remember that far back, the first one. I can tell you this story happens all the time, right? There's a story that we did, a documentary series called Industry's the Future, where we go talk with OEMs and kind of talk about the technology they're using. And this is very typical. There's a company called CM Shredders. They do tire shredding equipment, right? They're ripping tires apart and stuff. And you go, and kind of on the outside, you're kind of you're in an industrial park, and you're kind of like, and sure, there's a maybe it's not the high-rise sky, glass building, whatever. You go inside, there's, sure, it's a little dirty. There's stuff going on, but you don't understand really what it is. When you start talking to people and you start seeing the machinery, you're seeing what's happening. And then the bigger thing is the impact that they're having on the world, like what they're doing. It totally changes that perception and that perspective. And you have this wonder. And this still happens to me. Every time when I go into facilities, I'm just like, how did you do this? And why are you doing this? And how did you even think about it's so foreign to me. But with that story, I mean, our crews, every time that we were doing, they come away the same way, saying, this is like, I have a deeper appreciation. I had no idea. This is amazing. I've lost employees because of it, because they've decided they want to go into programming and go into manufacturing now. That's a win. I consider it a win. Anyways,
no,
I think that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So why do you think so many manufacturers are afraid to show the shop, the people, the imperfections that exist in the industry?
Because they don't think themselves that it's sexy. they think there's a very like negative sentiment that even manufacturers have of themselves, and I think a lot of people don't even realize the impact that they're having, because we can all do this. You're so nose to the grindstone. You're so focused on these things that it's hard to stop and take a look. But when you come out from the outside perspective and you see, and we're able to kind of, it's like the beauty of the storytelling and what we're able to do with videos, to be able to show, let's look at that 30,000 foot view with that company CM Shredders I was telling you about. Let's actually get out of the plant and let's show what that equipment is doing for the world. There are tire piles miles long in places all over the country, or all over the world. Had no idea how big of a problem it is. And when you start seeing the circular economy, that's like what this is enabling to do, you have a whole appreciation. And I think even manufacturers, industrial companies feel like, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with them where they're like, well, yeah, but our plant just looks bad. And we're just doing this, and I don't know. And we're like, guys, do you realize the impact? I don't think you do. And it's really amazing to me. And it's really cool when we'll come in with a production and we'll start talking to people. And I'll hear from leadership later saying, thank you so much for coming in. We did not realize this secondary sort of impact. Like, we're like, oh, we wouldn't tell our story. This is great. But our employees are like all excited now because you guys came in, somebody cares, somebody's interested in what they're doing. They're now feel like, oh, there's a little bit more purpose in their work, what they're doing. There's an impact that they're having in the world, and somebody else cares about that, and they want to shine a light on it. And I think that's a big thing. We did a piece years ago with a company. I don't know if I can share the name, but big company, big distributor in the electrical space, and we did a piece on them, and it wasn't your typical like corporate, like we are the leader, blah, blah, blah. You know, I mean, there was some of that
with that deep voiceover and
exactly. But we had like shots of like people having dinner on the sidewalk, and like baseball games and life, like all these different things. And they're an electrical distributor, and the story arc, the line was, basically, they're more than a distributor. You help power people's lives. Now, you're not necessarily the power plant making the power, whatever, but you play a big part in that. And inside the organization, people were like blown away. We were getting, we did some surveys and some different things inside the organization to capture sentiment. People were saying, I've been working here for 7 years, and I never really had a great way of explaining to my family what we do. And now I do, and I'm excited about it. Like, I just felt like I was just moving a box from here to here. Now I feel like I actually have deeper purpose and meaning. And it was funny because for us, we were like, well, we kind of saw this. Like, this is cool. Like, I don't know. You guys don't see that? And they're like, no, but now we do.
That's awesome. You brought up that manufacturers don't themselves believe that it's sexy, right? The work that we do. And do you think that comes from the narrative that we had created as a way to try and get the next generation in, right? We said, oh, we're dark, dirty, dangerous. We're not anymore, right? When in reality, there are some dark, dirty, and dangerous jobs that still
100%.
exist in this industry. And so do you think that we have, as an industry, created narratives that have worked against kind of that authentic storytelling and that ability to go out and say manufacturing is sexy, even if it's dark and dirty and dangerous?
Well, 100%. I mean, that's what marketing does, right? They'll take some things and they'll spin it. So 100% there's stuff where it's being spun, and there's obviously storied histories with manufacturing. You look at the United States and you look at where we are from outsourcing all of our manufacturing and starting in the 70s, the 80s and 90s, and whole communities that have been, quite honestly, devastated, because of it. And so now we're kind of like trying to flip that back. So I think, yes, there is 100%, there's elements of that. But I still think largely that the counter narrative has been, you're not doing something really cool unless if you're working in a glass ivory tower building that has beanbag chairs and the coffee machine and the whatever. There was, huge push towards that. I think in academia, in just culture. I remember growing up, you know, like there was a movement of like driving a dump truck or a truck driver was like the coolest job you could have.
Right. Yeah.
There was a cool thing. And now it's like, and there's been this perception change.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's incumbent of manufacturers to just tell their story. I mean, like your example of the company that shall not be named. When you tell your story in a way and bring in a resource like you, Industrial Sage, to tell that story. Was it Industrial Stage or Optimum that produced that?
This was Optimum. And you know what? It is public. We could talk about the company, but yeah, it was Optimum.
Okay.
And it was HD Supplies, which is now owned by Home Depot, but yeah.
Yep. So telling that story and what I'm seeing, what you're seeing, and we talked a little bit about this before, is that switch into content and digital marketing strategies, right? And so I think that the more that we help them tell those stories, we're helping them with their pride, their purpose internally. We're helping them talk about their legacy externally, right? And the more that we help them do that, the more we reach outside of the echo chamber that you and I have talked about that exists in the industrial space, right?
Sure.
And I think that's how we grow visibility within this industry. I mean, LinkedIn's great. You and I can like each other's content all day, but we both know what each other does, right? It's how do we get the soccer dad, the working mom, the single mom with 2 kids, the underprivileged parts of our society. How do we get them understanding what manufacturing is and how that sustainable career path can be there? And I think storytelling's the right path for manufacturers. Am I off base? I mean, this is your world, not mine.
No, 100%. I mean, we've been seeing tactics and stuff like this for a while that like really, I mean, let's go back to the, comment that I had made earlier, how it's made. How many people love, I mean, you bring that up and, you describe, oh, we're doing this. That immediately is brought up. That was a big mainstream thing, right? I think that's a big piece of it. But I do think that the more storytelling, more talking about purpose, more like really showing the results of what's happening. Like it's one thing to show the process, that's really cool. But the other piece is saying like, this is what's happening. This is where the hockey puck is going. And oh, by the way, there's a lot of AI, there's a lot of innovation, there's a lot of Silicon Valley stuff going on. So you're really seeing this convergence of these worlds. Not that there wasn't there before. There was tons of technology going on, tons of it. Just maybe not the way that you were thinking, but now it's like it's even more prolific. You're seeing even more. I think there was a stat years ago that manufacturing was the most data prolific industry out there because of all the processes that were happening. And it was like, I can't remember, to the tune of, it was something crazy just because of all the things we're going. It just hasn't been captured yet, I think is a big thing there. So.
No, I agree. I look at IMTS 2024. You had AWS, you had Google, you had companies that historically have not been tied directly to the manufacturing industry, right? They're all being used, but they didn't have a presence like that. And I think that those top tier enterprise level companies like that being involved in an IMTS is bringing a different level of visibility on the tech side. But to your point, when people started freaking out about AI, manufacturers have been using AI for decades,
Forever.
Right? We all carry AI if you have an iPhone, right? Like you've got Siri in your pockets. It's the generative side, and we did talk about that a little bit before we started recording here. Some of the AI slop that's going on out there, and so let's talk about that real quick. AI is shaping the content world a lot right now. I mean, there's more and more coming faster and faster. How do you think it's affecting the way manufacturers view creating content for their brands?
I am very, very optimistic about it. I think that it's opening up a field that didn't exactly. We had a conversation yesterday internally about this, and one of the things is, well, how come we can't get manufacturers that traditionally are not spending a lot of budget? And we talked about it too a little bit before, like, oh, on bigger brand videos or this or that or the other. The B2C companies that are more, they're going to be more consumer facing. They're traditionally going to do that. And I think I think there's an inflection point now because of now, you have that cost of technology has dropped significantly to the point where, you don't have to be a traditional video production company or no video. And you've got tools that you can do stuff pretty cool. It's not replacing creativity. It's not replacing strategy, but I think it's giving giving an open platform for companies to be able to do stuff. I was talking with we could tag him on here, the chief marketing officer over at Schneider Electric. I was talking with Shanadeep Modak about this. This is like a year ago. And, we were talking about just the proliferation of generative AI and how much of an interesting and exciting time it was, because everybody, enterprise level company down to small shop, were on an equal footing. They were on the same, in terms of access to technology. I think that's still relatively true. There's been some changes, but for the most part, what you and I have access to what Siemens or a Schneider or, we all kind of basically have access to the same tools. And, and it's kind of based up to creativity and, maybe you've got some more resources on the bench to dedicate towards doing some R&D and whatever. But I think that this opens up the ability to be able to, create more purposeful content, not slop like you were talking about.
Right.
We don't need slop. And I think you are seeing that because I don't think it's natural, because you can do stuff and it's, oh, wow. And it's so easy. But that's quickly going to fill the void. Right. And then we'll need a level set and go to the next level and start changing it. I think companies need to be getting in the game 100%.
Do you think that there's a way that we can blend that authentic human-based storytelling using generative AI tools?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think here's the thing here's sort of a little bit of our mantra. If you are trying to sell it as truly authentic and this is real and whatever, you're going to sniff it out in 2 seconds, and then it's going to take your credibility and your authenticity and it's going to drop. Okay?
Yep.
So don't do that. Not yet anyways. No, but I wouldn't do that, period. But if it's stuff where it's AI and it's embraced and you can still leverage storytelling that way and do it all day long. But I would not try to replace it with some sort of authentic. So what do I mean by that? I mean, don't be trying to make customer testimonials or something like that, from an AI avatar that's not a great idea. I would not be doing that. But maybe if you've got a product launch that's coming out and you want to tease it and there's a upcoming holiday or something, you kind of want to make light of it. You want to drop the product into this AI tool that's putting it inside of a movie and you're kind of like the greatest new thing, 100% all day long, go do it. So I think just understanding where and how is making sure you have that clear delineation, I think is important.
I get that. That makes total sense. And are we at a point now where you're starting to recommend to your clients that there's a healthy balance of that human authentic digital content and AI generative AI content as a healthy balance?
Yeah, I mean, I think it ultimately it depends on what kind of content and what the strategy is. So a lot of stuff that we're doing, depending on the company and whatever, we'll do a lot of stuff that's you won't see on industrial stage. So it could be a lot of internal corporate comms content, could be change management programs, could be, stuff like that. And so depending on the strategy and where you're going, 100% saying, let's leverage stuff where we can, let's test it. We're in the wild, wild west right now. And the speed of which things are changing it's crazy. And it's, what's the word? It's exponential really at this point. And so I think that there's lots of areas that we can be experimenting with. We are certainly talking to clients and on what they can do, what we can do together. We're big fans of repurposing content. So for example, a good example, we've got clients where we're doing productions on a somewhat regular basis for them. Any of the footage that we'll shoot, that's real live action footage, could be interviews, could be B-roll. We basically will put that into a library for them that's already clipped and categorized and ready to go. And we give them access to their teams. So their social media teams, their sales teams, IC, whatever, they can have access to it. They can use it, and they can repurpose that content in multiple ways on their social media, digital signage boards, internal, if they've got some sort of intranet, sales decks, putting it on their website. They should be repurposing. Sometimes, they say, hey, can you guys do that? But we're also saying, hey, look, guys, leverage Canva, leverage all these other tools. You can layer AI content on top of that to really kind of stretch this and make this go a little bit further. That's where I see big opportunities. If we can blend, here's actual shot footage that's of your facility, because nobody wants stock footage, of the people walking in the glass building with the briefcases, shaking hands. It's like, especially if you're trying to, if you've got like an internal audience, like, that's not us. Like, we're not like, that's, that there's us. Okay. In the shop,
Right. The ones that crack me up are the ones that they're the sticky note ones, right? So they're on, exactly the ones I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They're putting sticky notes up, and it's a glass window, and it's very obviously not a manufacturing facility.
100%. And I think that's where AI can come help a little bit too, to be able to generate some content that maybe, again, it goes back to this authenticity piece. Like, let's not really like try to fake it. And to be honest, I think we're going to get to a point, and I don't think it's going to take us that long, to where you take a picture of your facility and then you're able to generate other stuff, or a 360 of your facility. Because even right now, you could take a photo of it. You could create a whole video and storyboard based off of that one photo that is all generative AI, and that is, you're anchoring like your product or your whatever. It's mind-blowing. But you could do stuff that is, maybe stuff that's closer B-roll shots, or something that's a little bit more not necessarily like faces of people and direct things. Anyways, those are a couple of ways that we're leveraging. And then certainly like tools, but then that's getting into maybe some more technical stuff in terms of like eye reshaping and voice changing, and there's ethical questions and things there. So, but anyways.
One of the features that Riverside has is fixing eye contact.
Okay,
and I turned it on once just to see what it looked like.
And you're like,
and it is the wildest thing in the world. Yeah, exactly. I will never use that feature again. But it might be fun to use the feature where they animate. You can do it. I could make you and I into babies or puppies or something. Maybe that's what the final episode of this will look like. I don't know. Danny, as we look at, as with your experience, vast experience in this industry, what do you think that industrial companies are getting wrong when it comes to their marketing strategies and really what they know about their customers in general?
oh man. Well, I think, the number one thing that they're getting wrong is that they don't have a strategy. I think that's probably the number one thing. And that, and that's manufacturing or not. Most companies, it's tactic, it's shiny object. Hey, AI, sweet, we can do this. Let's go. Well, why are we doing this? And who are we doing this for? And that goes to the next question you're talking about relative to customers. I think that the next big problem is that marketers, we were siloed between marketing and sales, right? So typically, sales is over here, marketing's over here. They don't talk to each other. And marketing does a god-awful, terrible job, I'll be honest, hot take, on doing everything that they can to not talk to a customer, not understand their problems, and dream up stuff that they think is really cool that their customer doesn't. And I think that's a huge disconnect. And that's a huge disservice to your customer, because you're creating content that they don't want, they don't care about. I think a lot of manufacturers talk about themselves too much, and I think they talk about the product too much. I think they get into the technical weeds too much. You do need to get to the technical weeds once you're down a certain point in the funnel. But if you're top of the funnel, meaning it's a brand awareness piece or something, you don't even know who I am and what I do. We don't need to be doing this deep dive on how this product works. We need to be just talking about like, hey, there's problems out there and we might be able to help solve that, or, so those are a few. I could keep going on, but those are some of the big ones that I see.
In the essence of time. So with that being said, and your definition earlier on culture, how often are you seeing manufacturers use their culture as part of their storytelling technique? And is that something that they should probably be doing more of?
I'm not seeing it a whole lot, but we're seeing it change. And I have to say, so your presentation that you gave at IMS, at the Industrial Marketing Summit, second plug, if you should go.
Yeah, well
if
done.
If you're not signed up, go. Was a fantastic conversation. I was feverishly taking notes and taking pictures of your presentation. It's like, oh my gosh, we just talked about this with XYZ, and we see this is. I know we're not crazy. See, this is. I think it's very aligned. There's a big shift right now that's happening. You're seeing we're part of the in the IABC organization, the International Association of Business Communicators. A lot, and this is not necessarily exclusive to manufacturing, but it's a lot of internal corporate comms folks, communication, marketing. There's a big topic of conversation around what we're calling mixternal content. So it's content that's both internal and external. So as it relates to culture, which you were talking about, a lot of times that would just stay inside the four walls if it was being made at all. But let's say, for the sake of argument, that it was. We've got content around culture. We've got core values. We've got content around best practices. We've got the associate or the employee of the year, and we're talking about how they lived out that culture, how they lived out that core value, so we can model that for the rest of the organization. We're gonna not just tell, we're also gonna show, right? Show and tell. And leadership isn't just gonna talk, they're actually gonna do. And we're gonna see. I think that is really important when you look at the workforce challenge that we've got, where people need to attract and retain talent. And so if you have a strong culture and you are communicating that internally, you need to be communicated externally as well, as it relates to who we're attracting and who we want to bring onto the ship, right? Not anybody. We want to bring on the right people. So we want to make sure that the messages that we're talking about resonate with those people. So they say, oh man, you are speaking my language. So when I saw that recruiting video or those recruiting pieces or that mission statement, or how, there was I'm going to give a shout out to the new president of QAD Red Zone. 3 weeks ago, came out and on his, they did their big summit in the US and basically came out on stage and was like, hey, and I'm paraphrasing, to customers, we've messed up. Some of our deliveries in the past weren't where they needed to be. I take responsibility, even though I wasn't here for that necessarily. We're correcting that. We're fixing that. We're moving forward.
Wow.
Huge transparency, right?
Yep.
And, like when you see that, both internally and externally, you're building lots of trust. And I think that is a huge area that we struggle traditionally with manufacturing, is we have big trust issues. And there's reason for, right? You've got some storied history, right? Trust isn't just words, it's actions, and it's over time. It's not, oh, I'm going to say this, I'm going to do it one time and then we're good. It's over the time. So having that, having you can continually to tell, but then also show and then disseminate both internally and externally is a huge win. To recap your question, I'm not seeing that a tremendous amount, but we're starting to see more of it. We've got a great client that's doing something awesome in that space that I for sure can't talk about, but they're doing it and it's awesome. They are, and they are seeing they're seeing huge reductions in turnover, where typically you would have people that would come in and, they would, before 90 days, they're out, they're gone, these frontline workers. Because of some of these shifts they've put in, they're not just talking the talk, they're walking. Specific things that they're doing is they're listening to, they have mechanisms to be able to get feedback from the front line, listen to what they're saying, and put those things into practice in place.
That's
right?
Awesome.
So anyway, sorry, that was one question. I went for 20 minutes, so sorry.
No, there are no wrong answers or too long answers on the Manufacturing Culture podcast. I do want to touch on something you talked about, and specifically around the red zone example, because that shows a lot of openness to vulnerability, right? And you even mentioned that's not historically something we do well as an industry. And so, A, why do you think that we're historically not as open to being vulnerable as an industry? And B, how do we fix that?
Well, I think number one, in the past, it was much easier to brush things under the rug. And now we've got social media and we have, dissemination of information at the speed of light. And so it's kind of like, hey, we got to quickly jump on this grenade, because if we don't, it's going to get out quickly. And people are commenting things, be it on Reddit or on YouTube or LinkedIn, TikTok, whatever. So let's get in front of it and be proactive, I think, is, to be honest with you, one of the big reasons. I like to think it's because organizations are saying, hey, also, we want to look at our culture. We really want to change the culture. And instead of being this, and sometimes I think really repressive or oppressive organization, just shut up and do the job, right? That it's kind of coming in and saying, that maybe that worked back, several years ago. Now we need to really, if we want to create a vibrant culture, if we really want to see organizations that have taken off, they've been truly successful, you've got an engaged workforce where you're not having people that are constantly jumping ship because they're like, oh, this is a horrible, toxic environment. And your largely your biggest expense is going to be your people. Well, don't you want to create a better environment for them, even if it's just from a selfish standpoint of, well, we want better operations. But fine, even if you just do that, right? It's kind of a win for everybody.
Yep. I love it. One of the things that you and I connected on is again breaking through that echo chamber. So for manufacturing and specifically industrial marketing within manufacturing, what does success look like 10 years from now? How can we measure that?
Good question. How do you think we can measure that?
My podcast, I'll be on yours shortly.
How the turns have tabled. Wait,
yeah.
What? Sorry, I'm channeling my office quote. I think, I think one is job postings is kind of a natural one, right? When we see that labor and workforce, that we're not having this deep labor challenge, I think is probably a pretty big one. Probably be the metric to look at. I'd also, though, look at maybe we could look at like GDP in terms of manufacturing output. If we're really talking about reshoring, nearshoring, what does that actually look like in practice, and is it actually happening? On Industrial Sage, actually, we have an investment tracker that we started several months ago. So there was a huge trend starting in late 2024, continuing, where manufacturers are coming in saying, because of the new administration and everything, all the talk of BABA and just reshoring everything here, a big push on manufacturing, which I think is great. Lots of companies are saying, hey, we're putting in $5 billion here, we're doing $100 million here. I think Rockwell just made another announcement last week, like $2 billion facility build out in Wisconsin, all kinds of stuff like that. We have a big spreadsheet of anyone who has committed, I think, more than $100 million towards a U.S. direct investment in the United States. And we kind of want to benchmark that and track and see, okay, where is that actually happening? Have we broken ground, or are we just saying? I think that's going to be another measure that we could look at as well.
No, that's awesome. Is that something publicly available? So I could go on Industrial Sage and pull that up?
It's publicly available. It's on the homepage. And you click on it and it's got all kinds of stats, and then you can download the full
that's awesome.
The full list of companies.
That's awesome. I'll link that in the show notes. People go check that out. I think he's right. I think that's a massive way that we can look at how we're doing as an industry, as a country, as it relates to manufacturing. Danny, last question I ask every guest. What haven't I asked you that you want to talk about today?
What's for lunch? Just playing. Well, we did on your podcast that you were on, Practitioners Unplugged. That was, I think we opened with that. So no, I mean, what do we want to talk about? What I want to talk about is I want to flip the tables. I want to ask you a question.
Okay, let's do it.
What are you most excited about going into 2026?
Good question. I'm most excited about the way that manufacturers are looking at their people. And the people have, to your point earlier, have always been a large cost center, right? For a lot of manufacturers. When you look at the total cost of manufacturing a part, the people play a massive part in that role, your labor, your overhead. A lot of manufacturers are starting to look at their people as humans again, instead of commodities or line items. And I'm excited to see how shows like IMTS, how FabTech, how MD&M from Informa, how some of these larger events lean into that and help put your shop floor employees in the spotlight instead of just CEOs and presidents of the organizations that are typically a part of those events, right? So I'm really looking forward to that. I know that those kinds of organizations are already starting to plan their events for next year, and they are leaning into shop floor employees more and more. And I think that's amazing. On a personal side, I'm really looking forward to the partnerships that I'm starting to put in place as we wrap up 25 here for next year. Some really neat collaborations. Again, hopefully, Danny and I have been talking for, I think, 11 months now, at least 10 months, on how we can collaborate. And we haven't found that perfect thing yet, but we will. You know, Tradecraft, the TV show that I'm working on, is very exciting, wanting to get funding and sponsorship for that. So there's a lot. I mean, I know, like you said, Thanksgiving we just had, we're going into the Christmas season, but there's a lot to be thankful for. Still a lot to be scared about, but a lot to be thankful for. And I really see 26 as a big turning point for the industry, for this role within the industry on industrial marketing, with AI, with some of the AI exhaustion and what that brings for companies like yours and mine and other people that we know well, and then what that future of AI holds. Because I think that you're right. I think that every time we hit a point where people get that exhaustion, AI, then it'll take maybe 6, 9, 12 months, but it'll up its level and we'll start to see a new level of AI technology come out that will be really exciting to see. I'm excited to see how, sorry, this is a long answer, longer than I thought it was going to be.
There's remember, no long answers on the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. You're good. Keep going.
I'm excited to see how we can start using storytelling to bridge that knowledge gap within shops, right? Because I think we've done a great job of filling the pipeline of people who are interested in careers in manufacturing. But I think that one of the biggest issues is, how do you extract the knowledge that a 40, 50-year-old veteran has in this industry and give it to somebody who is 20, 22, 25 years old? And I think that storytelling is going to play a large part in that knowledge transfer. And so I'm excited to see how that unfolds.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. Awesome. Danny, this has been a lot of fun. I enjoy you as a human. The one requirement I have to be on this show is you have to be somebody I'd have a cocktail with or a cup of coffee with. And we drank both of those in Austin together last year. Looking to partake in both again this year. See you in a couple months, man. Happy Christmas.
Sounds good.
Happy Thanksgiving, all the things, and enjoy the rest of your year.
Same to you. Thanks for having me on.
You got it, man. Thank you.